Today, around 80 paintings by Caravaggio are preserved, but there's one in particular that kept a secret for centuries. Yes, I'm talking about the Beheading of St. John the Baptist, which many consider the pinnacle of his work. However, beyond its artistic merit, it's also the only piece where the artist intended to leave his signature, albeit in an unconventional manner. He chose to conceal it for many years until it was discovered during restoration. This secret adds an even darker aura to the painting. Let's delve into what other mysteries this masterpiece holds and why it's regarded as such. This particular artwork by Caravaggio, although it holds the distinction of being his largest piece, is also notably unsettling in many aspects. It possesses a profound sense of power, yet remains shrouded in darkness without any evident redemption. Similar to some of Caravaggio's other works, it explores the theme of violence, depicting a world where such acts often go unpunished, mirroring the harsh realities of the real world. Unlike Caravaggio's depiction of the martyrdom of St. Matthew in the Contarelli Chapel, where an angel intervenes to bring victory to the saint, this painting lacks such a resolution. Historically, this painting is housed in St. John's Co-Cathedral in La Valletta, Malta, which during Caravaggio's time was under the control of the Knights Hospitallers of St. John, an ancient crusading order. The Co-Cathedral served as their chapter house. The Knights governed Malta, where the majority of the population consisted of knights, a small number of European traders, and the local Maltese people with a strict military code. The Grand Master held ultimate authority over the island, and his decisions were final, leaving no room for appeal. During this period, around 1607, the Knights gained recognition for their triumph over the Turks in 1565, which thwarted an Ottoman invasion of Western Europe. They named the western part of the island La Valletta in honor of the French Grand Master La Valette, who had orchestrated the successful defense against the Turks. Becoming a knight was considered a prestigious honor, leading many noble families to enroll their children in the order, even if they were ill-suited for such a role. In 1607, the Grand Master, Olaf de Vignacourt, faced a significant challenge. La Valletta was considered somewhat isolated, and Malta itself was not renowned for its cultural offerings during that period. As a result, it was not a popular destination for many, given its status as a desolate military stronghold. What is the primary aspiration of an artist when creating a masterpiece? In an era devoid of television, the most effective means of reaching an audience was to have them enter a church and witness the artwork firsthand. However, the number of individuals willing to do so in Malta was limited. Consequently, Vignacourt struggled to attract artists to Malta, let alone persuade them to join the ranks of the Knights. This is where Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio comes into the picture. There are certain artists whose lives are well documented either through their own writings, such as Michelangelo Buonarroti. Then there are those artists who gained notoriety due to their involvement in legal disputes, such as the goldsmith Cellini or Rembrandt. Caravaggio falls into this category. His volatile temperament and frequent conflicts with fellow artists often landed him in legal trouble. In 1606, he engaged in a duel with another troublemaker, Ranuccio Tomassoni, near the tennis courts on Via della Scrofa. Ironically, this street was also home to St. Luigi of the French, where Caravaggio's famous St. Matthew series had brought him fame. However, this incident marked a turning point for Caravaggio, as dueling was illegal in the Papal States. Fleeing the scene, he was sentenced in absentia to be killed on behalf of the state, the Pope, under the charge of abunde capitale. This authorized anyone to take his life and claim a reward by presenting his head. Caravaggio initially sought reconciliation with Cardinal Scipione Borghese, the nephew of Pope Paul V and the administrator of papal justice, by offering his artistic services. This tactic had worked for him in the past to escape trouble, and he attempted it again with his famous painting, David and Goliath. In this artwork, Caravaggio depicted himself as the decapitated Goliath, implying that Borghese could have his head in paint if he spared his life. It is worth noting that the dating of this particular painting is often incorrect, despite its portrayal in Simon Sharma's documentary The Power of Art as a work from the end of Caravaggio's life. The David and Goliath actually entered the Borghese collection in 1606, the same year as the Jewel, not in 1611 when Caravaggio died. While this discrepancy adds dramatic flair, it is important to acknowledge historical accuracy. Tomasoni's family, however, proved to be too powerful for him to be granted a pardon. Faced with this obstacle, an alternative solution was presented to him. He could potentially secure a pardon by becoming a Knight of Malta. This proposition posed a challenge, as individuals convicted of murder were not typically considered for admission into the Knights, and approval would need to be granted by the Pope. Upon learning of Caravaggio's arrival and aspirations, Vignacourt was pleased. He quickly recognized the opportunity to address his own dilemmas. By welcoming Caravaggio, a renowned painter, into his service, Vignacourt would not only acquire artistic talent, but also ensure Caravaggio's continued presence. Vignacourt astutely perceived that Caravaggio sought a pardon to enable his return to Rome, along with the prestige associated with becoming a Knight of Malta. Understanding that once Caravaggio became a knight, he would be bound by obligations to remain, Vignacourt believed he had resolved the situation. However, subsequent events would reveal a different outcome, as will be discussed later. Before we proceed, I'd like to remind you that on our website, you can find a curated selection of artworks. I've taken the liberty to include the best pieces for you to adorn your home with. They're available in various sizes and styles, such as canvases or fine art prints, all meticulously selected to stay as faithful as possible to the original work. So, after you finish watching the video, I encourage you to browse through our catalogue and purchase your favorite piece to grace your home. Worldwide shipping is completely free, and by buying, you'll be supporting me in continuing to create videos like this one. Without further ado, let's continue with the story. Caravaggio flattered Vignacourt by creating two exceptional portraits, one of which depicted St. Jerome writing. The latter was highly pleased with these artworks. Additionally, Caravaggio painted portraits for other knights and royal patrons, such as the Sleeping Cupid and the Annunciation for the Duke of Lorraine. The wise Grandmaster, Vignacourt, approached Pope Paul V, who is famously associated with St. Peter's Basilica, to seek a pardon for Caravaggio. However, he tactfully avoided mentioning Caravaggio's name. The pardon was granted in May of 1608. As a final challenge, Vignacourt tasked Caravaggio with painting the altarpiece of St. John for the Co Cathedral, which is now located in La Valletta. This painting depicted the church's patron saint, John the Baptist, and was required to be completed before the feast of the Beheading of St. John the Baptist, when it would be unveiled. The life-sized figures in Caravaggio's paintings create a sense of realism, immersing the knights in a genuine dramatic experience. During the late 15th century, oil painting emerged as the supreme art form, particularly due to the achievements of painters like Van Eyck in the Netherlands. These artists were able to bring life to their subjects in a way that had not been accomplished before using oils. Caravaggio, however, takes this concept even further. His paintings not only appear lifelike, but also exude a vitality and intensity that was unprecedented in European art. One of Caravaggio's most notable works from his later period is The Beheading of John the Baptist, which is characterized by its dark and somber tone. This masterpiece is the only painting signed by Caravaggio himself. It portrays St. John the Baptist, his executioner, a soldier, Salome holding a golden platter to receive the severed head, and an old woman. Art historians have differing interpretations of the old woman's identity. Some believe she represents Herodias, the wife whom Herod Antipas compelled his brother to divorce in order to marry her. This interpretation adds an intriguing layer to the painting, which we will explore further. Another interpretation suggests that the old woman is a bystander who witnesses the horrifying act, symbolizing the viewer's presence both within and outside the painting. This blurs the boundaries between the depicted space and our own. There is much to observe within this setting. The spatial arrangement gives rise to a paradox, akin to a sudden hush amidst a cacophonous environment, which amplifies its impact through the stark contrast. Despite its emptiness, the space imbues the painting with a sense of impending doom and terror. This is exemplified by the two prisoners positioned in the corner, straining to catch a glimpse. The atmosphere is so dread-inducing that individuals of their ilk are drawn to it in hopes of witnessing the nefarious activities taking place. Caravaggio produced several paintings depicting beheadings, including a portrayal of Medusa's head and his own beheading in the renowned artwork David and Goliath. Another notable beheading painting by Caravaggio is the depiction of Holofernes' beheading by Judith, which delves into the emotional connection between sex and violence. In contrast, the painting under discussion explores the relationship between the state and violence through the representation of a soldier, as well as the juxtaposition of innocence and violence through the character of Salome. Additionally, the painting elicits a mixed reaction from viewers, as exemplified by the portrayal of an old woman. Salome is portrayed as a figure with pure white arms holding a golden plate. Traditionally, women were depicted with fair white skin due to societal norms and the association of tan skin with peasants who worked outdoors. Women of noble birth were expected to have pale skin as they were sheltered in royal households in preparation for a life of luxury. Salome, with her fair complexion, would typically be seen as a warm and innocent lady, out of place in a scene of violence. However, the biblical narrative reveals her complicity in the crime from the beginning, as she remains unfazed by the gruesome act unfolding before her. Now, the elderly woman has been the subject of speculation. Some believe that she is Herodias, which would be quite intriguing as it would depict a moment of remorse. However, when faced with the sight of blood, she cannot fully accept it and is unable to suppress the urge to scream. This reaction is similar to that of many royal executioners who distance themselves from their own acts of violence. Nevertheless, I do not believe that Caravaggio intended to portray Herodias in this painting. If we examine his earlier work, such as Judith and Holofernes, we can see that there is an old woman present, seemingly encouraging Judith. This woman is Judith's maid. Similarly, Salome would have had a maid accompanying her, considering her social status. Especially when entering a grim prison filled with dubious soldiers and executioners, Salome would have relied on her maid's presence. It is likely that the maid is assisting Salome, although she cannot fully participate in such a horrific task. What astonishes her is the sight of blood spurting from the severed neck of St. John, who, in this painting, appears to be in eternal agony rather than experiencing a swift death. However, there is another intriguing detail. The maid covers her ears, not her eyes. This is peculiar, as the medium of art is meant to be observed. On one hand, it could be interpreted as a representation of the gurgling scream that would accompany such a brutal beheading, as if the maid is expressing the scream herself. On the other hand, it aligns with Caravaggio's signature style of breaking down the barrier between the viewer and the painting. As art critic Andrew Graham Dixon suggests, the maid symbolizes Christian compassion and prayer. Finally, the portrayal of St. John himself emerges. He is adorned with a loosely draped red cloak, while beneath him lies sheep's wool. The former represents martyrdom, while the latter symbolizes the innocent lamb led to the slaughter, a metaphor for Christ. Although this painting ostensibly depicts the martyrdom of St. John, the focal point is not the saint himself, but rather the executioner. This brings to mind Caravaggio's earlier work, The Martyrdom of St. Matthew, created for the Contarelli Chapel. In that painting, the central figure is the assassin, not St. Matthew, as it conveys the dominance of sin in this world, yet the possibility of salvation. Caravaggio skillfully portrays St. Matthew's blood flowing into a baptismal pool, symbolizing the theological concept that baptism involves a death known as the res tantum. Mystically, we are metaphorically put to death in order to be freed from sin and brought back to life through Christ. However, the actual fulfillment of baptism is achieved through death in a state of grace. Caravaggio has expertly depicted the baptism of blood, specifically applicable to the martyr. He has signed his name F. Michelangelo with the F representing fra, brother, using St. John's blood. In a spiritual sense, the theological significance of the martyr allows for Caravaggio's forgiveness for a murder, while materially, the painting of the martyrdom, with Caravaggio's name inscribed in his own blood, grants him a rebirth as a man liberated from his death sentence. This liberation is further solidified when he eventually joins the ranks of the Knights of Malta, an honor earned through this very painting, It would be a captivating narrative if events unfolded in such a manner, but regrettably, that was not the case. Initially, things seemed to be going well as Caravaggio was knighted by the Order of Malta and hailed as the preeminent painter of his time. The 17th century saw a trend of artists being honored with prestigious titles, such as Velázquez being knighted by the Order of Santiago, Borromini becoming a Knight of the Holy Cross, Rubens receiving knighthood from both Philip IV of Spain and Charles IV of England, and Bernini being made a papal knight. However, it can be inferred that Caravaggio soon realized he would not be able to return to Rome as quickly as he had anticipated. This disappointment likely brewed within him, leading to an incident where he and several other knights attacked a high-ranking knight, defaced his door, and vandalized the property of a musician. The motives behind Caravaggio's actions, which involved him and 6 other knights, including the use of a firearm, remain unclear. However, the attack proved to be a source of embarrassment for Vignacourt. On the 29th of August, he unveiled the painting for the celebration of the Beheading of St. John the Baptist. Caravaggio, the artist behind the painting, was subsequently imprisoned in the Guva, a deep underground prison. Although no one had ever escaped from the Guva, Caravaggio managed to do so with the help of someone else. His escape involved scaling high walls, descending into the harbour, and finding a boat. Regardless of how it occurred, his escape turned him into a fugitive from the Knights' justice, resulting in his formal expulsion from the order. He fled to Sicily, where he produced several paintings and gained instant fame wherever he went. He then returned to Naples, where he was brutally attacked and left for dead. Shortly after, he attempted to travel to Rome with the promise of a pardon from the Pope's nephew, Scipione Borghese. However, he died on the journey. And that's it for today's video. As always, I want to thank you for tuning in, and I hope you've learned something new. Don't forget to drop a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next one, as I'm uploading between 2 and 3 videos weekly and I don't want you to miss any. See you in the next video. Bye.